In 1945, inside the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp, a starving boy held a single crumb of bread that basically defied every biological instinct of human survival.
Yeah, it's just an incredibly heavy image to start with.
It really is. So welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. We are looking at a brief, but honestly incredibly powerful email draft titled Echoes of Time.
A very fitting title considering the context.
Definitely. Our mission today is to explore how one highly localized act of radical sacrifice can actually ripple across an entire lifetime. So, okay, let's unpack this. We need to head back to the bleakest setting imaginable, just days before that camp's liberation.
Right, and to really grasp what happens in this text, you have to understand the severe biological reality of that environment. I mean, the source describes a young boy named Jakob sitting next to a girl who is actively dying.
Oh.
He holds his very last tiny piece of bread, and instead of eating it, he breaks it, feeds it to her, and whispers, "I don't want to eat alone."
Oh, man. Hang on. I'm struggling with the mechanics of that. From a strictly physiological standpoint, how does a starving person just give away their last calorie?
Exactly, it doesn't make sense on paper.
Right, because when the human body is in terminal starvation, doesn't the primal survival instinct completely hijack the brain? Empathy seems like a luxury of the prefrontal cortex that wouldn't even be functioning at that point.
Yeah, that is the core anomaly of this entire event. Severe malnutrition forces the brain into a strictly reptilian state. The amygdala takes over, basically screaming at the nervous system to hoard any available resources.
Which makes his action almost impossible.
Exactly. The fact that Jacob shared that bread means he had to consciously force his higher reasoning to suppress an involuntary biological survival reflex.
So it's essentially like a biological override code. He short-circuited his own nervous system's starvation response to prioritize a human connection over his own physical body.
That's a great way to put it.
It's like striking a match in a total blackout. In a war entirely designed to destroy human dignity, sharing that bread wasn't just a meal, it was this ultimate rebellion of humanity.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. He chose conscious empathy over involuntary biology. And what's fascinating here is the immediate aftermath, the text notes.
What happened?
Well, Jacob actually died just 2 days later. His physical body succumbed to the starvation, but he died with an entirely unbroken heart. He maintained his humanity until his very last breath.
That is heartbreaking, but this story doesn't actually end in 1945, does it? Because that biological override code he used actually worked.
It did. The young girl survived the camp. The text then jumps forward decades, showing her as an 80-year-old woman. And before every single meal she eats, she places her hands flat on the table, closes her eyes, and softly calls out his name. Jacob.
Wait, every single meal. I want to dig into that specific behavior. Is there a psychological mechanism behind performing that exact ritual before eating? It seems like way more than just a passing memory.
Oh, absolutely. It's actually a highly effective mechanism for processing extreme survivor's guilt.
Okay, how so?
Well, in trauma psychology, emotionally shattering events encode differently in the brain. They fuse with sensory details, like the physical act of sitting at a table or the sight of food. Normally, that kind of sensory encoding triggers PTSD flashbacks.
Right, so eating could easily be traumatic for her.
Exactly. But by ritualizing it, by intentionally speaking his name, she transforms a potential trauma trigger into a structural anchor.
So she's reprogramming the memory. Instead of the meal being a trigger for the horror of starvation or like the guilt of outliving him, the ritual turns the act of eating into a daily monument to his kindness.
Precisely, and it really challenges how we usually view history. We tend to think of legacy in terms of treaties, battles, and giant stone monuments.
Yeah, the big stuff.
Right, but here, an isolated microscopic act of compassion outlived the entire regime that tried to extinguish it. The kindness had a half-life of over 80 years.
That is just incredible. So what does this all mean for you listening right now? When you look at a news cycle that feels overwhelmingly bleak, it's incredibly easy to think that your individual actions just don't register on a larger scale.
Yeah, and this story proves that history isn't solely shaped by massive, sweeping events. I mean, the most enduring legacies are often built in quiet moments, structured around a whispered name at a dining table decades after the fact.
The history that actually sticks is deeply personal. So I want to leave you with this thought to mull over today. If half a piece of bread can echo in someone's nervous system and memory for 80 years, what small, seemingly insignificant act of kindness could you offer today that might become a lifelong echo for someone else?